The massive observation deck of the consortium's flagship Eternal Wisdom gleamed with holographic displays, each showing different angles of the blue-green planet below. High Counselor Verix, his crystalline form refracting light in complex patterns, stood motionless as he studied the readings. Behind him, a dozen other council members from various species waited in respectful silence. Fascinating. Verix finally spoke, his voice resonating through the chamber. Their energy signatures are chaotic, uncontrolled, yet there's a pattern we've never seen before. His crystalline fingers traced through the air, manipulating the holographic data streams. Commander Zarak of the Nexus Guard stepped forward, her scaled armor shifting with each movement. High Counselor, this is the third primitive civilization we've encountered this cycle. Standard protocol suggests. No, Verix interrupted, his crystalline structure pulsing with blue light. There's something different about these humans. Look at their history. The displays shifted, showing centuries of human development compressed into minutes. Wars, technological advances, cultural shifts, all flowing together in a dizzying stream of information that the consortium's advanced AI had compiled from Earth's broadcast signals. They fight constantly, observed Council Member Ithrin, her tentacles writhing in distaste. Even their entertainment is focused on conflict. And yet, Verix countered, look at what they've achieved because of it. Their technological progress in the last century alone outpaces any species we've encountered. They split atoms, touched their moon, and created global information networks, all while continuing to wage war among themselves. Commander Zarak's reptilian eyes narrowed, which makes them dangerous, High Counselor. The consortium exists to maintain peace and order in the galaxy. These humans clearly lack the discipline and unity required for membership. Verix turned, his crystalline form catching the light of Earth's sun. Perhaps, but we cannot ignore their potential. Their adaptability is unprecedented. They've survived ice ages, plagues, natural disasters, and emerged stronger each time. Even their fiction obsesses over survival against impossible odds. What do you propose? Asked Ithrin, her voice carrying both curiosity and concern. A diplomatic mission, Verix declared, but not like our standard approaches. We need to understand them better before making any decisions about their future in the galactic community. The council chamber erupted in murmurs of disagreement. Commander Zarak stepped forward again, her armor plates clicking together. High Counselor, with respect, standard protocol exists for a reason. We observe, we evaluate, we decide. These humans are clearly too volatile for direct contact. Verix's crystalline form pulsed with a deep red light, a sign of determination among his species. And that thinking, Commander, is precisely why we need a new approach. Our standard protocols were designed for species that develop like we did, gradually, methodically, with clear progression from warfare to enlightenment. The humans don't follow that pattern. He gestured at the displays again, bringing up images of human cities rising from the ashes of war, of technological innovations born from conflict, of art and culture flourishing despite constant strife. They don't just survive chaos, Verix continued. They thrive in it. They've turned adaptation itself into an art form. Our traditional diplomatic approaches assume a level of predictability that simply doesn't apply here. Council Member Ithrin's tentacles curled thoughtfully. What exactly are you suggesting, High Counselor? We send a delegation, but not our usual diplomatic court. I want a team that includes our military analysts, cultural specialists, and most importantly, our best psychologists. We need to understand not just what humans do, but why they do it. Commander Zarak's scaled face showed clear disapproval. And if they prove hostile? Verix's crystalline form sparkled with what might have been amusement. Commander, they're always hostile. That's what makes them fascinating. The question isn't whether they're capable of violence. It's how they choose when to use it, and more importantly, when not to. He turned back to the holographic displays, watching as human history continued to unfold before them. We've spent millennia perfecting peace, achieving harmony through order and protocol. But these humans, they've found strength in chaos, unity in diversity, progress in conflict. They're not just another primitive species waiting to be guided to enlightenment. They're something we've never encountered before. The council chamber fell silent as the implications sank in. High Counselor Varix's final words hung in the air like a prophecy. Our greatest mistake would be assuming we understand them. Because if there's one thing their history shows us, it's that humans have a habit of proving everyone's assumptions wrong. 3 months after first contact, the United Earth Defense Council chamber buzzed with tension. Admiral Sarah Chen stood at the podium, her weathered face illuminated by the holographic projections of the consortium's message. Around her, representatives from every major nation sat in stunned silence. "They want us to prove ourselves," she stated, her voice carrying across the chamber. "The consortium has proposed a military challenge, a controlled combat simulation against their elite unit, the Nexus Guard." General Marcus Rivera, his dark eyes fixed on the holographic display, leaned forward. "And if we refuse?" "Then we remain isolated," Chen replied. "No access to their technology, their trade routes, their knowledge. We'd be effectively quarantined in our own solar system." The chamber erupted in heated discussion. Dr. Emily Wong, head of Tenopsychology, raised her hand for attention. "There's something else we need to consider. The consortium doesn't just want to test our military capabilities. They're trying to understand how we think, how we fight. This is as much a psychological assessment as it is a combat trial." Admiral Chen nodded. "Agreed, which is why we need to be very careful about who we send and how we approach this challenge." The holographic display shifted, showing detailed scans of the Nexus Guard's capabilities. They're bio-enhanced warriors, products of millennia of controlled evolution and technological advancement, were impressive. Each stood nearly 3 meters tall, protected by reactive armor that could adapt to any weapon, armed with energy weapons that could disintegrate targets at the molecular level. "Their combat doctrine is based on absolute precision," explained Colonel James Harper, military strategist. "Every movement calculated, every action coordinated through their neural networks. They fight like a single organism, which is exactly their weakness." A new voice cut through the chamber. All heads turned to Captain Maya Patel, commander of Earth's Special Operations Division. She had been silent until now, studying the consortium's data with intense focus. "Explain," Admiral Chen prompted. Patel stood, her compact frame belying her presence. "They fight perfectly, too perfectly. Look at their training simulations. Every movement is optimal. Every strategy follows textbook precision. But real combat isn't perfect. It's messy, chaotic, unpredictable." She walked to the holographic display, manipulating it to show historical human conflicts. "We've learned to thrive in chaos. Our greatest military victories often came from improvisation, from breaking conventional wisdom. The consortium sees our unpredictability as a weakness. We need to show them it's our strength." Dr. Wong's eyes lit up with understanding. The psychological impact could be significant. The Nexus Guard has never lost a combat trial. They've never even been seriously challenged. Their absolute confidence in their superiority could be their undoing. General Rivera frowned. "You're suggesting we use their own arrogance against them." "I'm suggesting we show them something they've never seen before," Patel replied. "They expect us to try to match their precision, their technology. Instead, we'll give them chaos." Admiral Chen studied Patel carefully. "You have a specific team in mind." "Yes, not our most decorated soldiers, not our technical experts. I want survivors. People who fought their way out of impossible situations. Warriors who understand that sometimes the best strategy is to throw away the strategy book entirely." The holographic display shifted again, showing profiles of Patel's selected team. Each member had a history of unconventional success, of turning seemingly hopeless situations into victories. Lieutenant Anna Kovic, former guerrilla warfare specialist. Sergeant David O'Neill, urban combat expert, Captain Raj Singh, master of psychological warfare, and Lieutenant Commander Aisha Williams, whose improvisational tactics saved her entire squad during the Antarctic crisis. The chamber fell silent as they studied the profiles. These weren't the polished, perfect warriors the consortium would expect. They were survivors, adapters, chaos agents in human form. Admiral Chen's lips curved in a slight smile. The consortium wants to understand how humans fight. Perhaps it's time we show them why we've survived everything our world has thrown at us. There's significant risk, General Rivera warned. If we fail, we'll confirm their worst suspicions about us. And if we succeed, Patel countered, we'll shatter their entire understanding of warfare. They need to learn that true strength isn't about perfection. It's about adaptation, about turning weakness into advantage, chaos into opportunity. Dr. Wong nodded slowly. The psychological impact on the consortium could be profound. They've built their entire civilization on the idea of perfect order, perfect control, showing them a different kind of strength. Admiral Chen raised her hand for silence. The decision is made. Captain Patel, you have 1 month to prepare your team. The consortium wants to test humanity's worth. Let's give them a lesson they'll never forget. As the chamber emptied, Chen held Patel back. Maya, are you sure about this approach? We're not just risking our military reputation here. This could determine humanity's entire future in the galaxy. Patel's eyes held firm conviction. Admiral, throughout our history, humanity has faced extinction-level threats. Ice ages, plagues, our own weapons. Each time, we survived not because we were stronger or smarter, but because we refused to accept defeat. The consortium needs to understand. We're not just another species to be tested. We're the species that turns tests into transformations. The simulation arena sprawled across a virtual landscape of urban ruins and dense forest, a terrain deliberately chosen by the consortium to showcase their adaptability. In the observation chamber, High Counselor Varix and Commander Zarak watched alongside Earth's military leadership as both teams prepared for combat. The Nexus Guard unit moved with mechanical precision into their starting positions. Their enhanced forms gleamed with bioorganic armor, each movement synchronized through their neural network. In contrast, the human team seemed almost casual in their preparation, checking their basic equipment with practiced ease. Your warriors seem underprepared, Commander Zarek observed, her scaled face showing barely concealed disdain. Captain Patel, standing beside Admiral Chen, simply smiled. We'll see. The simulation began with a soft chime. Immediately, the Nexus Guard deployed in their standard diamond formation, advanced scanning systems sweeping the terrain for their opponents. But the human team had already vanished. Impossible, one of the consortium's tactical officers muttered, checking the readings. They couldn't have moved that quickly. But they hadn't moved quickly. They had moved smart. While the Nexus Guard searched with their advanced technology, the human team had split up, using the most primitive of methods to mask their presence. Lieutenant Kovac had covered herself in mud to defeat thermal scanning. Sergeant O'Neill used the ruins' natural echo chambers to project false sound signatures. Captain Singh had already started his psychological warfare, leaving deliberate traces of movement in contradicting directions. The Nexus Guard's perfect formation began to show its first signs of strain. Their tactical AI suggested multiple contradictory threats, unable to predict the seemingly random patterns of human movement. What are they doing? Commander Zarak demanded. This isn't proper combat doctrine. Lieutenant Commander Williams' voice crackled over the command channel, thick with amusement. Who said anything about proper? The first strike came from nowhere and everywhere. Small devices, barely more than primitive smoke grenades, detonated around the Nexus Guard. But instead of smoke, they released a cascade of conflicting sensor data, overwhelming the aliens' enhanced senses and disrupting their neural network. Primitive technology, one of the consortium observers scoffed. Our warrior systems will adapt within seconds. That's what we're counting on, Patel murmured. As the Nexus Guard systems recalibrated, the humans struck. Not with advanced weapons or coordinated attacks, but with pure chaos. O'Neill had rigged the ruins with simple pulleys and counterweights, creating moving targets and false signatures. Kovac emerged from the mud like a ghost, engaging in close combat before disappearing again. Singh's voice echoed through the ruins, speaking in dozens of languages simultaneously, creating a disorienting babel of sound. The Nexus Guard's perfect formation dissolved as each warrior tried to adapt to multiple threats simultaneously. Their neural network, designed for coordinated response to clear tactical situations, began to overload with contradictory data. "This isn't warfare," Commander Zorak protested. "This is madness. This is survival," Admiral Chen corrected. "When you've spent your entire history fighting against nature, against each other, against extinction itself, you learn that survival isn't about being the strongest or most advanced. It's about being the most adaptable." The simulation reached its crescendo as Lieutenant Commander Williams executed the final phase. The human team had not been fighting to defeat the Nexus Guard. They had been hurting them. Every seemingly random action had been driving the aliens toward a killing ground of their own making. The Nexus Guard, their systems still struggling to adapt to the cascade of primitive but effective tactics, found themselves in the center of the ruins. Williams' voice rang out clear. "Check." The aliens' superior sensors finally detected the truth. Every piece of debris, every fallen column, had been carefully arranged. The ruins themselves were a weapon, a massive deadfall trap that could be triggered by a single action. "Mate," Williams concluded, and the simulation froze. The observation chamber was silent. The Nexus Guard, the consortium's finest warriors, stood trapped. A single human warrior could end the simulation by collapsing the ruins, but more importantly, they had achieved something unprecedented. They had completely disrupted the supposedly perfect combat doctrine of the galaxy's elite fighting force. High Counselor Varix's crystalline form pulsed with intense colors. "Fascinating. Your team never intended to match our warriors in direct combat." "Why would we?" Patel asked. "You've spent millennia perfecting your approach to warfare. We spent our history learning to survive against enemies we couldn't possibly defeat through strength alone. Against nature, against overwhelming odds, against our own worst impulses." Commander Zorak's scaled face showed the first signs of understanding. "Your chaos wasn't random at all." "It never is," Admiral Chen said softly. "Humanity's greatest strength isn't our technology or our military might. It's our ability to turn disadvantage into advantage, to find patterns in chaos and create chaos in patterns. We don't just adapt to survive. We survive by adaptation itself." The aftermath of the simulation sent shockwaves through the consortium's command structure. In the Great Hall of the Eternal Wisdom, the Council had convened an emergency session. The holographic displays replayed moments from the combat trial, each scene forcing the assembled aliens to confront an uncomfortable truth about their assumptions. "Impossible," muttered Vaxtol, the consortium's chief military historian, his gelatinous form rippling with agitation. 10,000 years of warfare doctrine, rendered obsolete by primitives. High Counselor Varix stood silent, his crystalline form refracting light in complex patterns that betrayed his deep contemplation. Behind him, Commander Zorak paced, her scaled armor clicking with each step. "You're all missing the point," Dr. Wong spoke up from the human delegation. "You're still thinking about this as a military defeat. It's much more significant than that." The aliens turned to face her, and Wong continued, her voice steady. "What you witnessed wasn't just a combat strategy. It was the culmination of humanity's entire evolutionary history." She gestured to the holographic display, which now showed scenes from Earth's history. "Every major breakthrough in human history came from what you would consider chaos, our first tools, created because we were too weak to survive otherwise. Our mastery of fire, Born from desperation. Agriculture, a response to climate change that should have wiped us out. Commander Zarak's eyes narrowed. You speak as if weakness is an advantage. Because for us, it was, Captain Patel interjected, stepping forward. You evolved in environments that rewarded specialization. We evolved in environments that killed specialists and rewarded generalists. When the climate changed, the specialized species died. We adapted. When food sources disappeared, the specialized species died. We adapted. When new predators emerged, the specialized species died. We adapted. The display shifted to show human warfare through the ages. Every time we faced extinction, we didn't just survive. We emerged stronger. Not because we were special, but because we had no choice. We're not warriors by nature. We're survivors by necessity. High Counselor Varix's crystalline form pulsed with realization. The simulation. You weren't trying to win a battle. No, Admiral Chen confirmed. We were showing you why humanity is different. Your Nexus Guard are perfect warriors, trained to fight perfect battles. But we've never had the luxury of perfect battles. Every fight in our history has been desperate, improvised, fought with whatever tools we had available. The holographic display showed the primitive tools used in the simulation. The mud, the pulleys, the sound tricks. You saw these as primitive weapons, Chen continued. We saw them as they truly are, proof of human ingenuity. Every tool represented thousands of years of learning to turn anything and everything into an advantage. Vaxtel's gelatinous form shuddered. But the chaos, the unpredictability, is our greatest strength, Dr. Wong finished. You see chaos as a weakness to be eliminated. We see it as a force to be harnessed. Every human child learns this instinctively through play. How to adapt, how to improvise, how to turn disadvantage into advantage. The council chamber fell silent as the implications sank in. The consortium had spent millennia building a civilization based on order, on predictability, on the steady march of progress. They had created warriors who could outfight any enemy, ships that could outrun any pursuer, weapons that could overcome any defense. And in a single simulation, a handful of humans had shown them that they had been preparing for the wrong kind of war entirely. You don't understand, Captain Patel said softly, seeing the dawning comprehension on alien faces. When we landed on our moon, it wasn't because we had perfected the technology. We went with computers less powerful than today's children's toys, in spacecraft that were essentially controlled explosions. We went knowing we might not come back. We went because that's what humans do. We push boundaries. We take impossible risks. We make crazy gambles. High Counselor Varix's crystalline form pulsed with rapid color changes, a sign of intense emotional processing. Your strength isn't in your weapons or tactics at all, is it? It's in your fundamental nature. Your species doesn't just accept chaos. You embrace it, shape it, turn it into a weapon more powerful than anything we've created. Now you understand, Admiral Chen said, her voice carrying a weight of centuries. The question isn't whether humans are ready to join your consortium. The question is whether your consortium is ready for humans. In the days following the simulation, the Eternal Wisdom's Great Observatory remained unusually active. High Counselor Varix stood at its center, surrounded by holographic displays showing Earth from every angle. But now, the consortium's leaders weren't looking for signs of military capability or technological advancement. They were watching humanity's daily life unfold, seeing their civilization with new eyes. Remarkable, Varix murmured, his crystalline form shifting colors as he observed a rescue operation in the aftermath of a natural disaster. They're not even using advanced technology here, yet look at their efficiency. Commander Zarak, who had barely spoken since the simulation, stepped forward. They're doing exactly what they did in our combat trial. Adapting, improvising, using whatever tools are available. Because that's how they live, Dr. Wong explained, entering the observatory with Admiral Chen. Every day on Earth is a series of small adaptations, minor victories over chaos. We don't even think about it anymore. The displays shifted to show different scenes. Engineers solving unexpected problems during a space station repair, doctors improvising treatment methods in remote areas, communities coming together to survive extreme weather events. "We've been measuring advancement wrong all along," Varric said, his voice carrying a note of wonder. "We looked for perfect order, for predictable progress. We never considered that true advancement might come from embracing uncertainty itself." Admiral Chen nodded. "That's why your combat simulation failed. You created perfect warriors, but perfection is brittle. Humanity's strength lies in our imperfection, in our endless drive to adapt and overcome." The observatory doors opened again, admitting the full Consortium Council. Their various forms, crystalline, gelatinous, scaled, and others, created a living tableau of galactic diversity. Yet all of them moved with the same practiced precision, the same ordered grace that marked their civilization. "We have reached a decision," announced Council Elder Ythrin, her tentacles moving in formal patterns. "But first, we must acknowledge something unprecedented. For the first time in the Consortium's history, we are admitting that our assessment protocols were fundamentally flawed." A murmur ran through the assembled aliens. Such an admission was unheard of in their rigidly ordered society. "Humanity will not be joining the Consortium," Ythrin continued, causing the human delegation to tense. But then she added, "At least, not as subordinate members to be guided and developed." Varric's crystalline form pulsed with bright colors. "We are proposing a new type of relationship entirely. Humanity has shown us something we didn't even know we were missing. The power of controlled chaos, of adaptive thinking, of turning uncertainty into advantage." "What exactly are you suggesting?" Admiral Chen asked carefully. "A partnership," Commander Zorek answered, stepping forward. "My Nexus Guard were the finest warriors in known space, trained to mechanical perfection. But that perfection became our weakness. We want to learn from you, even as you learned from us." The displays around them shifted again, showing potential collaborative projects. Human innovation combined with Consortium technology, Earth's chaotic creativity merged with alien precision. "Your species has mastered something we never even tried to understand," Varric explained. "You've learned to thrive in chaos, to find strength in uncertainty. We can offer you technology, knowledge, access to the stars. But you can teach us how to evolve." Dr. Wong smiled. "You're not afraid of us anymore." "Oh, we're terrified," Ythrin admitted, her tentacles writhing in what might have been amusement. "You're unpredictable, chaotic, and by all our previous standards, completely unsuitable for advanced civilization. But we've learned enough to know that those traits aren't weaknesses. They're the source of your greatest strengths." Admiral Chen looked at her fellow humans, then back at the assembled aliens. "So where do we go from here?" "Into uncertainty," Varric answered, his crystalline form glowing with multiple colors. "Where else? You've shown us that the future doesn't belong to those who can predict it, but to those who can adapt to it. The galaxy is vast, full of unknowns and challenges we haven't even imagined. We have perfected order, but you have mastered chaos itself." Captain Patel, who had been quietly observing, finally spoke. "You realize this partnership won't be easy. We won't always follow protocols or do things the expected way." "We're counting on it," Commander Zorek replied, her scaled face showing what might have been a smile. "The galaxy is changing, and for the first time in our history, the Consortium needs to change with it. Who better to guide us than the species that turns change itself into strength?" As the human delegation left the observatory that day, they carried with them not just a treaty or an alliance, but the beginning of a transformation. The Consortium had sought to test humanity's worthiness for the stars, only to discover that humanity had already mastered something far more valuable: the art of evolution itself. In the endless dance of cosmic chaos, humanity had found its place not as students of an advanced civilization, but as teachers of a truth as old as Earth itself. That true strength lies not in perfection, but in the endless capacity to adapt, to innovate, and to turn the very forces of chaos into tools of survival. The stars awaited, and for the first time, both humanity and the consortium were ready to face them together, not in perfect order, but in perfect adaptation to whatever challenges lay ahead.